Before the break, I told you about a groundbreaking new book that tells the powerful story behind the Say Her Name movement through the individual stories of lived experiences and lives of black women who have fallen victim to state violence. I want to welcome a great friend of our show, the pioneering scholar, Kimberly Crenshaw. She's the executive director of the African American Policy Forum. She's the co-author of the brand new book titled Say Her Name, Black Women's Stories of State Violence and Public Silence. She's somebody I've spoken to so many times about so many important moments of our time, but I think we have to do honor to what you've written. You have written this book to remember and to honor these women and these girls. So let's talk about that today, even though we have a million things to talk about. Say Her Name. What was the point? What was the thing you were trying to get out there? Because we were in a moment in which people were remembering the names of people who were victims of police brutality, but you had a sense that somehow there were women in this thing who were being forgotten.
Yeah, well, you know, the impetus for Say Her Name was the rally, the march that many of us here in New York went on when the no bill came down against the person who killed Eric Garner. So we were all there. We were marching. We were chanting. We were saying, you know, shut it down for Mike Brown, who had been killed a little bit earlier. And we also went, by we, I mean the African American Policy Forum, we had a banner, there's a picture of it in the book, where we had the names and images of many black women who were killed by the police. And so we would put their names in the chants as well. And we noticed that some people gave us the, you know, thumbs up. Other people were disturbed. They were disturbed that they didn't know.
Right. Whose names you're talking about.
Who are these people? So it told us the reality that a lot of people didn't understand that anti-black police violence extended to women and girls, girls as young as 7, great-grandmothers as old as 93. This was a vulnerability that stretched across black women, across class, across age, sexuality, gender expression. No one was safe from this form of anti-black violence. But people didn't know about it. So it created what we call the loss of the lost. First, the families lose these women and these girls, and then the fact that they've lost them becomes lost to their communities, becomes lost to history, becomes lost to the movement. So Say Her Name is, quite frankly, the imperative. It's the embodiment of the imperative that we have to bear witness by saying their names. That is the way in which we can address the one thing that we can, the obscurity.
In the case of Breonna Taylor, it was actually meaningful because there have been so many people killed by police at that point that it was important to remember all of it. But one of the complexities when I talk to you, because you do so many things that are so important, is this idea that this goes back all the way to history. The quote that I used, this goes back to the foundation of this country. Black women and their experiences, their negative experiences and their positive experiences, there is a remarkable way in which we've erased that. One could argue we've also erased some of the experiences of white women in the country, but women's experiences get erased through history, and you're trying to remedy some of that right now.
Absolutely, and I think we're actually seeing the consequences of that erasure even in the recent debate about the Florida Black History Standards that tries to, in some way, balance enslavement with the fact that they learn skills. Look,
just to be clear, for anybody who's missed this, they are trying to suggest that enslavement was some sort of vocational training, that it brought skills to black people.
At the end of the day,
they learned how to be
still learn something.
Yeah.
Look, my great-great-grandmother was an enslaved woman. She was also a person who helped people in labor. I cannot imagine that this woman who had more than a dozen children, many of whom she never was able to raise on her own, would say, well, on one hand, I was bred and I lost my children. On the other hand, at least I learned how to be a midwife. That's outrageous. It's insulting. And it's also telling us that the ideology that supported enslavement, the neo-Confederate idea that it was good for black people and it civilized them, still has a hold on our country. That's the only reason that anyone can reasonably think that they can talk about enslavement as basically a skill-building experience for African Americans.
You bringing together all of these issues that you talk about. You tweeted after that overhaul of Florida's anti-African American history standards discussion. You said, no one should be shocked. This whitewashing of our history has been the goal of anti-wokeism from the beginning. It was never about CRT or indoctrination, but about erasing the historical predicate for anti-racist policies and knowledge. We must fight back. This is all part of your life's work. The idea that there's never, the argument that one makes is never really the argument, right? You are the brains behind CRT that everybody says is why we're banning books these days, but it's not.
It never has been about CRT. It never has been about trying to protect children from, insults and assaults in the classroom against their psyches. This is about the effort to erase the history of this country so that its contemporary consequences cannot be addressed. It cannot be named. There is no remedy for something that really wasn't that much of a problem. And in any case, it was a long time ago. I'm talking about my great-great-grandmother.
Right.
It was not that long ago. So finally, I'm satisfied that people now see this for what it is. I hope that we take the lesson that there's no appeasing this.
Yes.
There's no pivoting. There's no running away. This is what the GOP is going to run on. And unless we learn how to fight this on its own terms,
right,
we're going to see more and more of this DeSantis nonsense.
Which means people not saying something isn't CRT or don't worry about it, understanding that this is what they are saying CRT is. Now go against it. Go and say Absolutely. Why you can't censor history and keep it away from our children. And discomfort, as we say with our banned book club, is not a reason to not read something or learn something.
Never is. And that's exactly why the APF, we've had Freedom to Learn as part of our campaigns. We have Critical Race Theory Summer Schools starting a week from today. And so folks want to learn more and know how to fight. This is where you have to come to do it.
Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us and for me and the amount that I've learned from you and for our viewers.
It's been a pleasure.
Kimberly Crenshaw is the executive director of the African American Policy Forum. She is the co-author of the new and important book, Say Her Name: Black Women's Stories of Police Violence and Public Silence.